Hello everybody. Let us discuss again the ASP.NET Server controls. We have seen the label, text box, checkbox, radio button and a normal button. But here in this video we are learning about the list controls and the other controls like link button, image and many other list controls like drop down list, list box, radio button list, checkbox list and bulleted list. Now let us discuss with these all list controls. The list controls gives the list of number of data items which are actually reside in the list. Now these controls let a user to choose from one or more items from the list. The list boxes and drop-down list contains one or more list items. These lists can be loaded either by the code or by the list item collector editor. So both way you can add the number of items in the list controls. One way is by either the code, that is source code. By through the source code we can add the number of list items, and other way the list item collector editor will be there, and that will give you opportunity to add the number of list items. Now what is the basic syntax of list box controls? Let us see. ASP colon list box ID is equal to list box in double quotation run at server. This is also a compulsory thing which will work with the server, that every control which is a ASP.NET control, and those controls will be work with the server by using run at server. Now the auto bounce back property will be get true, and on selected index changed is equal to list box 1 underscore selected index changed. That will be the property, and these properties should be taken in the list box. Then next is a drop down list. The drop down list has also a basic syntax, that ASP colon drop down list ID is equal to in double quotation drop down list 1 run at is equal to server. Auto post back property will be true, and on selected index changed is the property will be drop down list 1 underscore selected index changed. So these two controls are used for the list which will take the number of data items in our list in our program. Sometimes we require in our applications the number of list items which we should give, and those list of items will be used for further calculation, maybe further definition, maybe further data that will be used for decision making or any type of checking. So what are the common properties of this list control? The list box and drop down list has the different common properties. Very important property is first, that is items property. So the collection of list items, the objects that represents the items in the control. So this property returns an object of type list item collection. Now this property will be taken with the description. This will represent the items in the controls, whatever the number of items you can give inside this one. The next is a rows. You can specify the number of items displayed in the box. If the actual list contains more rows than displayed, then a scroll bar will be get added. So if our item list will be more than number of items, so it will show a scroll bar on the right hand side of that property, or you can say on that control. Then the selected index property, which will give the index of the current selected item. If more than one item will be get selected, then the index of the first selected item, and if there will be no any item, the value of property will be always -1. Then selected value, the value of the current selected item, so that will be currently selected items. So these items will be get into the array, which will showing the number of items from the index 0. If more than one item will be get selected, then the value of the first selected item will be taken, and if no item will be get selected, the value of the property will be always in empty string. Now the selection mode, this indicates whether the list box allows single selections or multiple selection. So these are the common properties which are also applicable for list box as well as drop down list. What are the common properties of each list items object? So these are the common properties, that is the text, selected, and the value. Text will be displayed on for the item. Whatever the text, you have to give the item caption, that is the item name. Then the selected, it will indicate whether the item is selected or not to be selected. Then the value, a string value associated with item. Now, how to do these all things, that we have to note some very important things, that with the work of the items in the drop down list or list box, you can use the items property of the control. Items property is also very important property, and this property returns a list item collection. Now this returns a list item collection object which contains all the items in this list. Now list item collection will take one editor, and that editor will work as a list of this item, and you can add the number of items in that list. The selected index changed event is raised when the user selects a different item from a drop-down list or list box. Let us see the list item collection object. This is the list item collection object, which is the collection of list item objects, and each list item object represents one item in the list. Now these items in the list item collection are numbered from 0. So that will be always an array, and that array will contain the number of items. When the items into the list box are loaded using string like first color dot item dot add, this is the method. The method add will be used, and the blue color, the value of this add method is given here blue. Then both the text and the value properties of this list item are set to the string value you have specified. To set it differently, you must create a list of item object and then add that item to the collection. So you can add this item, that is the blue item, in the list. The list item collection editor is used to add the item to a drop-down list or list box. So in both boxes, the list box and drop-down list, you can use the list item collection editor. So this editor will be used to add the items in both list box as well as drop-down list. This is used to create a static list of items, and to display the collection editor, select edit item from the smart tag menu or select the control and then clicks the ellipse button from the item property in the properties window. So this is a static list of items, so you can just finalize the list of items that you will be added by the using list item collection editor. What are the properties and methods of list item collection? These are the properties. Important properties, item, that will be always in integer. the list item object that will represent the item at the specified index, and the count will be taken as a property. The number of items in that collection will be get counted. Now, what are the methods of list item collection editor? Some methods which we are using here, important method is a add. We can give this add method which will be having parameter string. This adds a new item at the end of the collection and it will assign the string parameter to the text property of the item. So always if you are using this string, that will be added item at the end of that collection and it will assign some string parameter. Next is the add list item. This will add a new item at the end of the collection. So it may have the number of list items, so you can add this with the end of the collection. The next method is the insert, that will be integer or string having the parameters inserts at an item at the specified index location in the collection and assigns string parameter to the text property of the item. If you want to insert any item in some index location, that can be done by using this insert method. The another insert method, this will also give the specified index location in this collection. So that is also done by the index method. Also, the next method is a remove method. You can remove any item from the list of that item and you have to specify the text value same as the string or same as the list item, that will remove the specified item from the list. Now you can remove add, you can remove add method will remove an item at the specified index as the integer. So you can remove any list item from a specified index also, because these specified indexes are the name are the names, as we can say it is from the 0 index to number of data items. Next method is a clear. This will clear all the items from the collection. The next method is a find by value, that is string. This will return whose value is same as the string, and find it by the value will be given returns the item whose text is the same as the string. So both are having the combination and comparison with the value finding of the string or text. The next list is a radio button list and checkbox list. Now we have already seen about the radio button server control as well as the checkbox server control. But here this is different than those server controls. What is this? This is a radio button list and checkbox list. This will concern with the list and data items which are actually residing in that list items. So what is this radio button list? A radio button list presents a list which is mutually exclusive options, and a checkbox list presents a list of independent options. This controls contains a collection of list items. This will having the collection of list items object that could be referred to through the items property of that control. So that radio button list and checkbox list has a item property and that has to be changed. So what are the basic syntaxes of this radio button and checkbox list? That ASP colon radio button list ID is equal to, in double quotation, radio button list. Run at server, run at is equal to server. That will be always in our ASP.NET application, because this all radio button list or any of the server controls will be used, or you can particularly present at the application level, which will request the server the data, and the server will provide this data as HTML controls. Now the auto post back property will be always true, and on selected index change property will be radio button list underscore selected index change. These two properties are also very important. This selected index change, this is selected index change, so both side this will be radio button list, and this is checkbox list 1. Now the syntax of checkbox list gives this checkbox list ID is equal to checkbox list 1. Run at server, this should be always compulsory. Auto post back property will be true, and on selected index changed property we have to change with the checkbox list as well as radio button list. So this is a basic syntax of radio button list as well as checkbox list. What are the common properties of the checkbox and radio button list? The common properties are just, you can say, this is repeat layout property. This attribute specifies whether the table tags or the normal HTML flow to use while formatting the list when it is rendered. So the default is a table. And repeat direction, this will specify the direction in which the controls to be repeated. The value of the available are horizontal and vertical, so the default will be always vertical. And the repeat columns property will specify the number of columns to use when repeating the controls, and the default will be always 0. Now radio button as well as checkbox has these properties. Those are the combined properties. Now the next are the bulleted list and the numbered list. These bulleted list which will create the bulleted list and numbered list. Now these controls contains the collection of list items that could be referred to through the items property of this control. So item property for each of these list controls are very important, which we can change at the time of development or as well as at the time of design. So what is the basic syntax of bulleted list? See, ASP colon bulleted list ID is equal to bulleted list in double quotation, run at server will be always there, and it has common properties. What are the common properties? Important properties are bulleted list, bullet list. This property will specify the style and looks of the bullet. So you can use the bulleted list or number list in our list control. So you can use these properties which will looks the bullet. Maybe bullet is used by the square, or you can use the numbers by 1, 2, 3 and so on. The repeat direction will specify the direction in which the controls to be repeated, and the values will be available are horizontal as well as vertical. Mostly the vertical values will be used. The repeat columns which will specify the number of columns which will use when repeating the controls, and that will be always default value will be 0. The next control is a hyperlink control. This hyperlink control is same as a HTML anchor tag. Anchor tag will be used, that is A will be always anchor tag, and this A is used in HTML for concerning with the hyperlink. Now what is the basic syntax of hyperlink control? See here, ASP colon hyperlink ID is equal to hyperlink 1. Run at server. This is important and this is a compulsory because we are using this hyperlink to get the information from the server. Now the hyperlink is provided, and this hyperlink has the end ASP hyperlink control which will be get ended. It has the following properties. Important properties are the image URL. So path of the image to be displayed by the control. So you have to give the path of that image which will displayed on the control. Also, the next property is navigate URL. This will target link of URL that will be displayed. The next is a text. The text which will be displayed as the link. This is one of the property, and the target property which will use to window or frame which will load the linked page. So this property target link which having property and that will load the linked page which is linked to in the hyperlink symbol, hyperlink control. So this is the hyperlink control. Next is the image control. This image control is used for displaying the images on the web page, and some alternative text will be also used for images when image is not available for that control. Note the basic symbol, basic syntax which will be used: ASP colon image ID is equal to image 1, and the compulsory thing is run at server. This has following properties. The alternate text which will be displayed in absence of the image. If there will be no any image which is displayed on the browser, then some alternative text will be get displayed or appeared on that control. So this is alternative combination which will be displayed. If there will be no any image, this alternate text will be get displayed, and the user can select that text or that image control, and they can do whatever they want. Next is image align. You have to align that image for this control. So you can align this image maybe at the left hand side, maybe at the right hand side, or you can align this image in middle. Sometimes this image will be get aligned at the top or middle or the bottom level. So this image align has different attributes. The property has different attributes, and that can be done with this property. Next is the image URL. You can use the path of this image which will displayed by the control. So those are the number of server controls in ASP.NET. Thank you very much for watching this video.